Okay, so what are you saying, people, and welcome back to your favorite YouTube channel. So today, guys, like always, the weekly analysis for you. On the screen of the pairs will be analyzed today, but make sure you do stay to the end of the video as I do have a bonus pair in store. So before we quickly go through the analysis, we'll quickly go through some trades I had this week, one in pound yen, one Aussie CHF. Take a look at the DXY and then jump into the Forex analysis for next week. If there is a particular pair you do want to see my analysis too, feel free to skip ahead using the timestamps below. But this week I had two positions, one on pound yen and one on Aussie CHF. Pound yen didn't turn out too well. We did see some upside. Let me go to FXCM. We did see some upside for the yen pairs, and I've been pretty bearish on them, looking for a lot of downside for the yen pairs, and I still am pretty bearish. I'm still looking for downside. However, I may have entered a little bit too early in price, may want to push up a little bit higher first before we do see that bigger move. I'm still just about in the position. My stop loss is above the high there, but it's not looking promising. Price has seen a bit of downside, but it's failed to really push lower. We respected the low here. It looks like the price has put a higher low there in as well. So the key thing I'm after, the reason why I got into the sell, was I'm anticipating price to match this high here and then continue back to the downside. I'm looking, this is a big impulse. This is a big correction, kind of a bear flag, if you will. I'm looking for that continuation. So I might be taking out the trade here, but I will look for re-entries if things look good. If price starts breaking higher and starts putting higher highs and higher lows in, maybe I was wrong with the direction and we're going to trend back to the high. That could be very much the case. And if that's the case, I'll swap my bias around and start looking to try and catch those higher lows. But for now, I'm still pretty bearish. I know things are not looking too good here, but I'm anticipating price kind of maybe pinching the high, then rolling over and finding some re-entries. But we'll go into more analysis when we actually do take a look at pound yen later in the video. In terms of Aussie CHF, this one didn't play out as well, but price is still roughly around my entry price where I entered on Wednesday or Tuesday. So yeah, price has just been moving sideways on me since I entered. Bit of up down, but we closed around my entry there. Stop loss is above the high here. This was the last bonus pair which I gave out last week. I said I'm expecting price to hold on to this level and possibly see another drop back to the low. So that is still pretty much the plan. We've had a really nice bearish leg here, similar to the yen pairs, and looking at this again, similar to pound yen, as some type of correction for the market to go for a continuation. And this is a really nice area of confidence as well, coming back into that low. So I hopped into a short. Like I said, price hasn't really done much. It's looking okay, although it is moving sideways, but I do think we can break lower and really get the ball rolling, and hopefully that can come around next week. But I'm still just about in both positions. But yeah, we'll see what happens next week with both of them. In terms of the dollar, of course, we had the NFP this week, so price was very volatile, at least on Friday anyway. I mean, we actually saw a lot of momentum throughout the week. Friday kind of just accelerated things. But I'm still bearish long term, as I keep yapping on about. I still do think DXY is coming back to that low eventually. So I'm looking at this bullish move as a pullback for that move. So I've highlighted two big areas on the daily chart, this low here and this low there. One at 102,500 and the second one just above 104. Those are my two areas where I do think DXY has a good chance of rolling over. So I'm going to see what we do in these areas. Of course, we've just got there, so not a lot of information to take. Other than we are looking like we're slowing down, which is nice, but we'll see how things develop early next week, and of course on the dollar crosses as well. But if we were to break through, then the next area I'm anticipating that big rollover is around that 104 mark. But yeah, still long-term bearish, still expecting us to push into this low at 99.5. So as a swing trader, that's what I'm looking for. In the meantime, there might be some intraday longs, trying to ride that momentum. We may pull back, retest some structure here and still push up. So that could be a nice intraday sell, not long if you're looking to trade the DXY, but if you're trading like Euro, could be a nice sell, or pound USD, could be a nice intraday sell. But the long-term move for me is still pretty bearish, so I'm looking at those levels as some big turning points. Moving on to Euro USD. So this one I'm still pretty bullish on. Looking for us to come back into the high. Just literally missed it when we did that double top, but I'm still looking at the buys. As long as the price maintains these higher lows here, I'm looking for that fourth one, 1, 2, 3, 4, generally in this area here for that buy as we approach the high here at 109.5 and also 109 pretty much from the dot. Those are my two areas of interest where I do think price can put that next higher low in. Now I just need to wait for the entry signals and momentum and rejection and wicks before I can look to enter. Right now we're seeing some momentum creep in, but that was towards the end of the Friday, so I'm not gonna look too much into that, especially with such a big 4-hour candle pushing us down. So I want to see a bit more development there on Monday, some wicks, some stronger bullish candle closures, and things look good. I will be interested for some upside there for euro, and again looking to take it back to the high and hopefully back to that level around 1.125. So yeah, very bullish on euro. I like the move we've had. It's kind of given us better prices to buy it up, so should it play out, the risk to reward will look a lot better, and there'll be that more of a bigger swing trade. But now we just need to wait for the setup, because who knows, maybe price is going to break through these levels. So waiting for the clear entry to tell us that yes, price is rejecting is going to be very, very important. But that is what I'm eyeing up next week for Euro USD. Okay, so now moving on to dollar yen. So dollar yen, I was anticipating some downside this week from 147. It didn't quite hold. Price did break through pretty easily. I think, yeah, NFP gave us that big push higher up. I'm still pretty bearish, like I said, with the yen pairs, dollar yen included. So as we do approach this high, I'm looking for some downside. I do have my last kind of point of call where I retain that bearish bias. If it was to be broken, I would then probably throw it in the bin or reinvestigate. This high here for me is a really pivotal point around 152. These are the levels here, specifically on the daily chart. I do think price is likely to turn around. So I'm liking the bullish momentum, but I'm still anticipating that to be a retracement in the bigger picture of things. So if things look good here, start to see some nice rejection, I do think that's a great place for a short. Likewise with the level above us, I do think that's a really nice place for a short as well, if we see some nice rejection there and a really nice turning point in the market. In terms of targets, I mean, from a swing point of view, I do expect us to come back to the low here, but yeah, that would be a phenomenal trade, and you don't necessarily have to target all the way at that low for it to be a successful position. Even if you can get it back into this area where we've seen some resistance, some support, a lot of pressure coming into that level, I think at least for an intraday trade, intra-week trade probably, that makes a lot of sense. 1 to 2s, 1 to 3s into that area. That's a great trade in itself. You can always leave some positions to run back to that low, but of course the way I'm looking at the market is from a swing point of view, so that is where I do think the market will end up if we are going to continue that bearish trend in the higher time frame. So I'm expecting a lot more downside for dollar yen, 149 we'll call it, and 152. Look, really nice levels for shorts. Wait for the price action, wait for the entry signal, and then if things look good, take some shorts at least to 146 for next week, but longer term still looking at that 140 area. Okay, so back over to Swiss yen. So Swiss yen, another dollar pair, still really bearish on this one, expecting a big move to the downside longer term. This is a massive range in the weekly chart. I'm still looking for us to push back into the low end of the range around 1.323. In the meantime, we've broken through a really nice level here on the weekly chart around 1.36. We've used it as resistance pretty well, but price looks like it's coming back for another retest of that area. Now, I still have that bearish bias with dollar CAD as long as we don't break through this high, because we had a lovely bearish swing, pull back, lower high, just about pinched it and made a new lower low. So price is going to break through that. Technically it's a break of structure, also breaking above this really big level here as well. At that point, dollar CAD may actually want to be pushing back to the high. So if you do break through that, I will throw away that bearish bias and probably start looking for some buys. But for now, we're still very much below that high, still very much below 1.36. So I'm still looking at more downside back into this low and beyond. So as we approach back into 1.36, I think looking for some entries here on the 4-hour, hourly look really good. And the risk reward looks pretty good as well. If we can see some nice rejection here, entries in that area, stops above the high or stops above the high, if you want to be a bit on the safer side, more conservative, and then target the low here, you're looking at a really nice risk reward. Of course, there's some areas here you can look to take partials or manage the trade, or just call it a day anyway, where you can look to take some really nice exits. But from a swing point of view, if you are going to see that daily bearish trend continue and get to that low end of the range, I would expect us to hold that high and continue the swing back to the low and beyond as well. So there's a lot of downside potential with dollar CAD. Of course, keep an eye on USD, the DXY, see what that's doing. If that does look like it's about to turn around, then that could be a nice signal to get short on dollar CAD as well. But looking for some shorts around 1.36. As long as we can hold that, I do think we can push all the way back down to 1.342 for next week for dollar CAD. Okay, so over to Euro Pound. So Euro Pound this week, really big push to the upside, but it looks like it hasn't amounted to much. You can see in the weekly chart, it's just left behind a big wick. Now we still do have this level just underneath us, 0.83, and as it looks like price is still likely to come back and retest it. So I will still have that bearish bias with Euro Pound, since overall we do have that bearish trend. It's not the cleanest trend in the world, but steadily the market is maintaining these lower highs. So from a market structural point of view, as long as you maintain those lower lows, lower highs, I'll stay bearish on the market, expecting resistance to hold, structure to hold, and for price to continue lower. And it looks like price has just gone and done that for a really big push on Thursday, and price respect, then came straight back down the next day. So I do think there's more downside to be had. Now you do want to see a bit of a pullback first, and hopefully price come back and retest some structure before looking for some sells. You still do have this lovely swing low here, which could act as resistance. Of course, we'll see how price reacts with it. Stop loss above, could be looking at a nice swing back down to the low, or a little bit lower around 0.83. And there is an area just above us as well, around 0.84 we'll call it, which also looks like a nice place for a short. Should we get a nice retest? Again, expecting price to push back to the low. So with Euro Pound, still pretty bearish, still looking for us to push into 0.83. That's where we have, you know, a massive level in the monthly, weekly chart, which I do think price is going to get to. Maybe we're going to see another reversal from there, like we did over there, or maybe a breakout. We'll have to wait and see. But for now, still looking at more downside. Price is still maintaining those lower lows and lower highs. So still looking at another push back to 0.83 for next week for Euro Pound. Okay, so next up we've got Aussie USD. So I'm really bullish on Aussie USD. You can see we're starting to break to the upside. We've taken out some key highs on the left over here, and we're starting to build out some higher highs and higher lows. So for Aussie dollar, another USD pair, still expecting that long-term USD weakness to come into play. I've marked out a few zones where we could see that turning point coming back into the high over here. We've got this lovely level here around 0.67, and we've got the low here. Now, I'm still bullish on Aussie dollar as long as we stay above this swing low. If the market was to come down and break through that, then I'll rethink things, and maybe I was incorrect with that bias. But as long as we stay above that, I'm expecting us to find a turning point somewhere and head back to the highs, and longer term 0.7 as well. Big psychological level, which I expect us to get to eventually. But for now, we're coming to this first area. Things now still look pretty bearish for Aussie dollar, so not really looking to get involved just yet. But things can change, things can develop on Monday, and things might look good for a long. We'll see how things develop. But also, should that level not hold, I still like this level here at 0.67, and also down here, which is my last kind of point of call. If price can respect that, that's where I'll look to get into some longs and take it right back to the highs. So yeah, with Aussie dollar, still expecting more of the same. Looking for that next higher low. Hopefully you can get it next week and take it right back to the high here, which is around 0.69. And like I said, I do think we can go a lot further than that. But how you want to manage those trades, of course, be up to you. These are just the turning points where I do think the market is likely to turn around and see that next higher low. So keep close eye 0.679, 0.671, and 0.665. And expecting a big push to the upside for Aussie dollar next week. Okay, so next up we've got NZD CAD. So NZD CAD, I'm bullish on this one. We had a really big move to the downside this week, and for me this is just an opportunity to look to get back into some buys. I've talked about a couple levels which I said look good for some longs. I said the retest of the high there, or the retest of this high, and price has just smashed through both of those levels. Now, with me, I'll still retain this bullish bias with New Zealand CAD as long as we stay above this low here. So if price starts breaking through that, not that we can't go bullish, but it does lower the probability because I want price to maintain these higher highs and higher lows. Breaking through that might mean something like that does occur. So in terms of probability, staying above this low does mean the buys still look good. You can see in the higher time frames as well, we've been slowly trying to push the upside too. I'm kind of looking for something like that as we do approach the low. Again, we don't necessarily need to swing it all the way to the high as well. You know, push back to this area here, we found that higher around 0.85 could still look like a phenomenal trade. Even back to this area around 0.845 looks pretty good as well. We can always leave some positions to run, but drop into the 4 hour. If you can find some rejection at that low, I think that's a really nice place for a long. Stop loss below, give yourself some wiggle room to breathe, for the trade to breathe. and hopefully you can see a big swing for this one back to the high. But as I said, there's numerous areas where you look to secure gains, take profit, trail a stop loss. That'll be up to you in terms of your risk management, but really bullish on NZD CAD still, as we do come back into that low at 0.832. We'll wait for some entry signals there early next week and hopefully take some buys, but that'll be the plan going into next week for NZD CAD. Okay, so next up we got pound NZD. So pound NZD, I said there's two areas which looks good to get involved with. This area down here around 2.09 and this area up here around 2.145. Now price neither got to, didn't get to neither of them. Unfortunately, we get very close to the low here before price did turn around and we didn't get close to the high, but those are the areas which I want to get involved in because they're away from all the noise in the market, because we've been very choppy with pound NZD, and trying to find some entries in here and stop losses and targets just become very difficult. At least when we buy down low, we're kind of away from the noise where price can turn around and we can get a nice safe stop loss underneath the low. Likewise with the high, stop above the high there, expecting price to see some downside. So those are the two areas which I like from bullish and bearish points of view. In here, I would avoid trading. So now that we kind of just missed the low, I'm looking to see if pound NZD can make its way back to the high at that 2.145 area and see some downside. This is still our previous swing high in the market, which gave us the swing low. So as long as price stays below that and doesn't break through, I will still anticipate price to sell off and potentially right back to where we came from as well. So the risk reward looks pretty good should that move play out. But pound NZD, I like the sells. I think long term the sells is going to play out, but we are still printing these higher lows as well, which is why the buys look good. You know, should we hold that area, that's an area where a higher low could form and maybe a continuation as well. But for now, as we do approach the high there, we can see how price reacts, what type of candlesticks we're getting, wicks, engulfing, bearish engulfing candles and things look good. We can take some shorts, of course, price break through, and we want to stay away from that because maybe we are going to see a big swing back to the high up there. But for now, looking to see if this good level can hold 2.145. We'll see what type of PA we can get when we get there, and looking for a swing back to the low there at 2.09. But that is the plan I have for pound NZD next week. Okay, so next up we got CAD Yen. So CAD Yen, I've been expecting more downside. I was expecting this level to hold this week, 109, but looks like NFP has just broken through that level. Now I still do have a bearish bias for CAD Yen. It looks like price might just be pinching a little bit higher, taking out some stop losses as we go through a slightly bigger correction, but I do think the market is likely to give us that turnaround. Again, for the yen pairs, I'm still looking at the same thing. Big bearish move in July, looking at that being a correction for price to then continue lower. And until we see price really commit to the upside and see some higher lows, then I'll look to reinvestigate and probably change that bias. But for now, I'm still looking at downside. I have marked out this area here as a brief consolidation where we did pause for a little bit. You can see it a little bit better in the full hour where a lot of momentum came from. You might see price go and test that area before the sell. So take out some stop losses above that level, test that area there, and then get the drop. So in terms of entry, the area which I would look to see for some shorts would be if price can get back below this level. Now CAD Yen is my favorite yen pair to trade, but if it was to get back below, that would interest me for some shorts, because at that point it's proven to me that this area is of significance and price is respecting it. If we come back below the level there, then I'll be anticipating that as a big fake out, looking for the retest, stop loss above the high, and looking for our continuations. And again, if this does play out, I've got some levels down here I'm expecting price to get to. If it can load, there we go. But we've also got this low here as well, which is definitely a suitable target, and I bet the risk reward will look really good. 1 to 3s, 1 to 4s, 1 to 5s, maybe even more, depending on your entry. And of course, you've got some targets elsewhere, depending how aggressive you want to be with the position. But to me, I'm still anticipating this big break as a big fake out as we come into that level. If we come back below, great. We'll look for the retest of 109 and look for that big sell. But essentially, really, CAD Yen has been ranging in this area here. So if there is a fake out, we do come back for the retest, there's a good chance we'll complete the swing of the range back to the low and continue. So the sells look good, just need to get back below 109, look for some entries on the retest, and hopefully you can see that swing take place. But yeah, that will be the plan next week for CAD Yen. Okay, so over to pound USD. So pound USD have been very bullish on this market, and as we can see the structure I'm marking out, we can see really consistent higher highs and higher lows. So as long as we maintain this, I'll still say bullish with pound USD. If we do go and break structure now, I will look for that next wave and for some downside and probably look to change that bias. Even if it does do that though, I do think price will just go through a bigger pullback, something like this, and then eventually put that higher low in. It just might mean there's some nice sells to take advantage in the meantime before we do put that major higher low in on the weekly and higher time frames. But for now, I was looking for the buy on the retest of that level there. It didn't hold. Price did have a slight bounce, but it broke through really aggressively on Thursday. So the next point of call would be this high and this low here, this level just above 1.3. Like I said, as long as we maintain above that, I'll still be expecting this trend to continue. If we break through, especially with a big candle closure, it might mean some more downside is on its way for pound USD. So coming to a very critical low, looks like price is slowing down, which is a good sign. So hopefully we can maintain that kind of corrective nature back to the low there and look for some buys early next week or whenever it does form. And again, if it does hold and we do see the trend continue, there's a long way to go and the risk reward's looking pretty healthy back to 1.342. There's also this high at the target as well, which looks like a good place to start locking in gains as well. But in terms of the trend, still very much alive. I know we had a big drop this week, but it hasn't taken out any critical structure, so that higher time frame bias of being bullish still remains for me, as long as we can respect this low. And if we do, that could set up a nice buy next week from that same level, and hopefully we can take it back to the high there. So that is the plan next week for pound USD. Okay, so up next we've got pound CAD. So pound CAD, I'm still just about bullish on this pair. I do think we're going through a big reversal soon because we have hit a really big level in the monthly chart and we've been bullish for so long. So I do expect us to have a bit of a breather and see some downside, some meaningful downside in the next coming weeks, months. But the trend is still very much alive. Again, we haven't really broken through any major structure yet, so I still do like the buys here for pound CAD. I was, however, looking for the break and retest of this level here for the long this week, around 1.785. Unfortunately, price did not show any signs of respect into that and broke through with ease, but it does still give us an opportunity just slightly below around 1.77, and I still like this area here as well at 1.75. So those are two areas which I like the buys. Now with pound CAD, since it has kind of respected that monthly level pretty well, I'm not so confident that we're going to see a big swing back to the high again. I think the buys are still meaningful because the trend is still at play, but we might end up forming a lower high at some point and start trending down. So if I do get into longs with pound CAD, of course I'll be trading the stops just to see and give it the potential to achieve a move back to the high, but I'll be a bit more aggressive because this is such a hard fall. I kind of do expect a lower high to form somewhere, maybe the retest of this level or the retest of that area, or maybe we do get to the high. Of course, we'll only find out when it does happen, but it's been such a big drop for pound CAD and we've come from such a big level. The sellers have really come strong to the market, but we've still got some lovely areas of bullish territory where it does still make sense for some nice longs. We'll see how price reacts when we get there. And things look good. I do like the buys here for pound CAD at 1.77 and 1.76 roughly, and you know, buys back to the high there looks pretty good, even the high there as well. We're looking at some really nice risk reward. Let me redraw that. There we go. You're still looking at some nice risk reward for next week, but again, it's up to you how aggressive or conservative you want to trade pound CAD. But in terms of looking for buys, you know, these levels still look really good. 1.77, 1.76. Hopefully find some entries there and take it back to the high for next week. Okay, so over to pound yen. So pound yen, I'm still just about bearish on. I'm still looking for a big move to the downside for this one. To me, I'm still looking at this as a big bear flag pattern of this massive impulse we had in July, and now the price is correcting itself for that continuation. So I'm still under that impression with pound yen, and if we do start breaking through this, giving some higher highs and higher lows, then I will rethink things. Maybe price is about to trend higher, but for now I'm still holding on to that bearish bias and I'm expecting to see price starting to break back underneath again and give us some sells. Now this is still the main area of focus for me. It's a similar setup to CAD yen in terms of I want to see price break back underneath 193, or even better, if price can clear this low here at 190 and start getting some retests below that, that will really clear things up, because at that point we're breaking through key support and we're probably seeing a lot of momentum at that point, so shorts could look good. But what I'll be looking at to see is if you can get back below that high there at 193, and that could be a really nice place for some entries. And as I just mentioned, probably a break and retest of the low there as well, which might take some time to play out, but should it come into action, I think that would be a really nice place for a short there as well. Again, looking for us to come back into 184, 180, 181, 179. I do have a lot of targets which I'm expecting price to come into. You can even start to look for entries in this area here as well. You can see that's a brief pause in the market where we did consolidate, and then a lot of momentum came through. Price may want to go and test that before we get the sell. So calling some tops around there could look good. It's a bit on the aggressive side. We are still seeing a lot of bullish momentum for the yen pair, so trying to short the high is always going to be a bit aggressive, but then again, the risk reward makes up for it as well. As long as you keep your risk managed, the reward is very much rewarded. So yeah, with pound yen, what I'm looking at is 193 for the shorts, or the break and retest of the low there, 190, a bit more conservative, but it still gets the job done. And still looking for a push back into 184 and beyond there next week. So that's the plan for pound yen. Okay, so next up we've got gold. So gold was still very bullish on. There's no evidence, really no clear evidence the market is about to go through any type of reversal really. Yes, we're slowing down a little bit there, but it just has the characteristics of a market that's about to go through retracement. Maybe a slightly bigger retracement, but there's no signs of reversal. So I'm still very bullish on gold and expecting more upside. We've got the psychological level of 2,700 just above us, so maybe that could be a target for next week. But in terms of the buys, this is still my preferred level since 2-3 weeks ago. Unfortunately, we didn't see the retest. Maybe we do, so I'm going to keep an eye out for that. But I think more realistically, we're probably going to see something like this as a nice opportunity to get long on gold around 26.20, or maybe I think breakouts is a nice way to play it as well, because in these conditions where price just creates a level, breaks it, continues, creates a level, breaks it, continues, taking some breakouts in these conditions is not the worst play. It's actually a very good play. In fact, you know, this is what breakouts are for when you've got a really nice trending market. So waiting for the break of the channel there and looking to buy on top of that, or break of the high here, and looking to buy on top of that could be in a really nice trade. But also these look a lot better in terms of risk to reward. They're a bit more favorable as well. But both look like really nice plays there for gold. So for me, I'm still waiting for the retest here. Hopefully we might see it next week, might not. There's other pairs I'm looking at, so I'm not necessarily banking on it, but if gold does come there, I will be interested. And I like this low here as well at the bottom of that kind of flag pattern. And yeah, expecting price just see that next wave come to play. So look for some entries next week around 26.20 or 25.90, and hopefully we can see new highs and maybe a test of that psych level around 2700. Okay, so now onto Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, I'm very bearish on. As long as we remain in the channel, I still do think we can see another swing back to the lower end, around 50k. Last week I was talking about the high here or the top of the channel, that trend line there. Price kind of did a bit of both, slightly broke above it, but then came right back below. So I do think the bigger move is still to the downside, back to the low here. Unless Bitcoin has a crazy move all of a sudden and breaks the high, then of course we'll speak about the buys when they happen and talk about some break and retest. Because if we do get that breakout, then as I keep saying, I expect to see momentum like this come into play. So if it does happen, we'll look and take those quick break and retest and ride that momentum. But for now, you know, price is still respecting this range and still respecting this descending channel. So as we approach the high again, I think that's a solid place to look to short. Entries on the 4 hour could look good, refine those entries there. And if you do catch the trade, you know, you're looking at a really nice swing back to, you know, 52k-ish. You're looking at a nice, you know, 10% drop there, even more than that, almost 20% drop there for Bitcoin should we come back to the low there. So really nice opportunity there for Bitcoin, back to the low. Some shorts around 64k look good, or even if you push a little bit higher to the top of the channel, they look good as well. If we were to break through, then we can scrap that bearish bias and really focus on the buys. But for now, still expecting more downside for Bitcoin. So that's the plan going into next week for Bitcoin. Okay, so last but not least, we've got our bonus pair, which for this week is Swiss yen and the yen pair. So as I said, it's still very bearish on the yen pairs, and I still like them to the downside. They're kind of approaching some real critical levels. Should we see sustained break of these levels, I'll probably be rethinking the bias, but for now I'm still pretty bearish. And for Swiss yen, we've been trending to the upside really well for the past couple of years, probably even a little bit longer than that. But I'm looking at this as being some type of top for Swiss yen. I'm looking at this as being a big head and shoulder pattern as well. I do expect us to eventually sell off. Now, Swiss yen is trading at a really critical point here. It looks like we're slightly breaking through, but I'm going to give the market the benefit of doubt. Sometimes we could slightly pinch highs and still break back inside and see the sell. The market is not always perfect, but for me, as long as we can maintain this level here, I'm short bias. If the market opens up really bullish next week and I see Monday's candle or Tuesday's candle, we start trading above here and start seeing break and retest, then I would hold my hands up and maybe Swiss yen could be providing some nice buys on the way back to 180. So the buys could be the play, but for now I'm still really bearish. And since following the laws of market structure, there's our high, there's our low, there's our lower high, there's our lower low. As long as price can respect that, I know it's slightly breaking above, but again, price is not perfect. Sometimes we do pinch highs a little bit and then reverse. So that's what I'm anticipating with Swiss yen. Like I said, if we do have a sustained break, then I'll rethink things and we've got a big break of structure there. But price can start to show rejection there. I do think the shorts look good and the risk reward looks really good as well. If we to see a big bearish engulfing candle coming back in, that for me would be a great signal. On the 4 hour, stops above the high, and then looking for a swing back to the low and probably a lot further as well, because now I'm expecting the trend to really take over. I'm expecting us to push back into 158 because that was the last all-time high we had. So I do think price will come back inside that high soon come. But yeah, we're trading at a really pivotal area here. So if we do continue higher, we'll rethink things. But for now, looking for that rejection. Let's see if we can come early next week and catch some sells. But for now, still really bearish with Swiss yen. 173 is that point of call and targets for next week. Of course, up to you. You can look at the low here, but I'm expecting us to push eventually back into 165. And that, guys, does bring us to the end of the analysis. If you have found it useful, please be sure to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and of course, make sure you do hit the bell so you don't miss out on any streams or uploads in the future. Comment down below any pairs you're looking at. I'm interested to find out. Otherwise, guys, have a great weekend, and I'll catch you all in the next one.